Today we're going to talk about 10 cultural shocks that a Mexican can go through when coming to the Netherlands. Number 1, direct communication style. The Dutch are by excellent, straightforward to communicate. If you come to the Netherlands and you're at work or at school and you tell them after giving a presentation, hey, how did my presentation go? They might tell you, it was okay, period. No extra compliments, no sugarcoating if they thought it was not great. And in the beginning, this might be a little bit blunt or seem a bit blunt in the first place, but then you will understand that this is just the way the Dutch prefer to communicate. Number 2, punctuality. In the Netherlands, punctuality is key. If you get invited to an event, for example, at 7 p.m., you are really expected to be there at 7 p.m. sharp. Different to what we have, for example, in Mexico, that if you arrange a party at home and you say 8:30, you can already assume that most people will arrive at 9 or 9:30 even. In the Netherlands, the clock runs by the minute, and it's not only for social gatherings. For example, it's also very visible in public transport. When you are in a train station, sometimes you see the train will depart at 18:03. That really means at 6 p.m. with 3 minutes. It doesn't mean that it'll be at 6 or at 6:05. Or a bus that says at 8 a.m. with 12 minutes, it'll depart. It really means 8:12, not 8:10, not 8:15. Here, the clock is never rounded up or down, and punctuality is key. Number 3, the cycling culture. In the Netherlands, especially in big Dutch cities, bicycles can easily outnumber cars. I have seen entire families going to school or to do grocery shopping on their bicycles. In fact, one time I was in Amsterdam and I saw right outside of one of the houses there by the canals, 2 big bikes with 2 seats in the back and a small one, like announcing this was a house of a family of 5. And just very recently, I was talking to a Dutch friend who told me, this is wonderful. Imagine that all of these people who you see in the morning cycling to work, to school, all of them, instead of using a bicycle, imagine if they used a car. Imagine the traffic. And honestly, that would be awful. In the Netherlands, the cycling culture is king, and it's something that I think is really great about this country. Number 4, the possible language barrier. In the Netherlands, it is well known that most people speak English, sometimes even better than native speakers. Nevertheless, it doesn't mean that absolutely everyone speaks English at all times. For example, in a personal experience, I was once in the local Friday market and I was queuing in this immense queue to go get some cheese from like cheese stand. And I was there confident that I would be able to just speak in English to the seller. And when I reached to the front of the queue after quite some time, I found myself saying, "What cheese would you recommend me?" And the guy was like, "Huh?" And I was like, oh no, like he could not understand one word of English, or that's what it seemed. And I ended up having a random piece of cheese, like it was like an old, quite dry one that then, because it was so dry, they had to give me like a big chunk. It was a disaster. Disaster in the sense that it was a lot of cheese and that I didn't actually get something like recommended, more like I paved my way out of it, like saying some eau de cas, like an old cheese or something. Anyhow, this is something that can happen in the Netherlands. Not everybody speaks English, not to say that Spanish is also not widely spoken by the Dutch. If anything, they speak English as a second language. So just so you know, guys, it's good to come to the Netherlands with an open mind towards learning some Dutch, because you might stumble upon people that are not precisely fluent in English, and fair enough if their country is the Netherlands and their native language is Dutch only. Number 5, less emphasis on hierarchy. This is something that is very easy to observe in society, especially in the studying environment, and not to say in the work environment. When I was here doing my master's degree, I started to realize that people were not calling the professors Mr. something or Miss something or Mrs. whatsoever. Here in the Netherlands, people were calling the professors by their first name, not even the last name, the first name. And this paved my way towards understanding that in the work environment, it is the exact same thing. You call your bosses and your managers by their first name, which in Mexico, for example, it'll be very easy to assume that you first go like with a respectful way, calling them señor or señora in the streets to older people, not to say to your boss, of course, or professors like profesor, profesora, or in English, Mr. or Miss, which was my case back home. And in the Netherlands, this is not the case. Everybody is treated by their first name, and it's something that is really admirable and very evident to see of how hierarchy here is absolutely flat. It's like a gesture of respect that the Dutch simply don't need. Number 6, agendas and personal space. Just like I mentioned before that the Dutch are very punctual and that here the clock runs by the minute, they are also very respectful and careful when it comes to their personal time and space, and they run themselves with an agenda. It is very likely that Dutch people will need to book you sufficiently time in advance if you want to go have dinner with them, have a coffee, or if you have a special event in which you want them to attend, you better tell them with sufficient time ahead. This is very different for me, for example, compared to what we would do in Mexico, that we are way more spontaneous and that we might call you any given day of the week to ask you, hey, are you available this weekend? Do you want to go grab a drink or go for a coffee? With the Dutch, it is less likely that this works unless it's a big exception. To be frank, this is something that I have adopted myself already here while living in the Netherlands. I carry always in my bag a small pocket agenda. Yes, by paper because old school. And I like looking at my agenda page by page where I can see the entire week. And I have it in my pocket always or in my bag always because it's just likely that someone will tell you, hey, what are you doing on the 3rd week of July? And you might as well check because at some point people are managing themselves like this and you might be surprised that you already have booked also something with quite some time in advance. So then again, this is also something different in the Netherlands, personal space and managing the agenda. Number 7, the work-life balance. Just as I mentioned before, and I say again, that punctuality here is key and that people respect their agendas and personal time. Hand in hand with these 2 points that I mentioned before goes the importance of the work-life balance. In the Netherlands, the average work week is from 36 to 40 hours per week only, and people are expected and completely used to sharp on time leave work every day. Different to Mexico, in which we are sometimes expected to do overtime. For the Dutch, it's very simple. If you're not getting paid the extra time, you should not stay. That's it. And I think that we all value our personal time or our free time, but in the Netherlands, there is not an external pressure for you that you are expected to stay longer than you should, whereas in Mexico, sometimes we might be expected to stay a bit longer without this being a problem. By the way, speaking of this difference, currently in the Netherlands, I work 36 hours, and that not only means that I work 9 hours only per day, but it also means that I work 4 days per week only. So I go Monday to Thursday and I have my Friday to Sunday off. And this is also just another example of how in the Netherlands, the work-life balance can really be prioritized. Actually, I am thinking maybe I should do a video on the 4-day work week because as a matter of fact, guys, let me clarify that the 4-day work week is not the norm in the Netherlands, at least not yet, or at least not by law. I happen to be working 36 hours per week that are spread throughout 4 days as a decision from our management. So just to clarify, this is not the way that, for example, my friends or my acquaintances tell me that their work week goes. But first, a clarification, and second, maybe this is a good idea for another video. Maybe I can do that next week. Why not? Number 8, bureaucracy and rules. This one gives me a little bit of a mixed feeling because it is very true that the Dutch have rules and procedures for practically everything, and they might be quite demanding in order for you to be able to comply with the requirements for specific procedures they have already implemented in their system. But I have to say that I do like to believe, and it's very calming even to know that there's always a procedure that is well established and that it's encouraged, and most importantly, that it is respected. There is an order, there is a set of rules, and it's widely respected by the locals. And this is applicable for everything: housing, subsidies, opening a bank account, getting a driver's license, getting a mortgage, anything. Everything has a very clear procedure. Everything has a process and a time to be published and to be settled. And I think that this is maybe very shocking when you might come from a country where the rules might be a bit more flexible. But if you ask me, after having lived here, especially almost 6 years now in the Netherlands, I really do prefer the Dutch way. Number 9, social norms and etiquette. I have to say that this one is one of those scarce ones that I just have not finished to get used to, and I think that I never will. Because in the Netherlands, when you meet with someone, when you encounter yourself with someone, it's very normal to just say hello or hoi, like greeting with certain distance, like you barely knew each other. Or if you really meet very closely because you have an appointment, instead of giving one kiss on the cheek, the Dutch give 3. And it's something that for me until today, I just not get used to. It's something that still grabs me by surprise. I have to say, full honesty, that I find it a bit awkward because you're a bit talking and crossing the face with the person. It's a bit strange for me. So compared to Mexico, where we might have a handshake or have a kiss on the cheek or a hug or the 3 of them, I think it's a bit cultural, and I think it's also very character-like. So it depends also in your personal preference. But culturally speaking, in the Netherlands, you're not expected to be so affectionate when you meet with someone. And in Mexico, I think that you are not expected to be so distant, you'll be like, hola, because it's just different culturally speaking. But yes, it's something that here in the Netherlands I have not got used to. And I think that every time I encounter into a Dutch person again that greets me with 3 kisses on the cheek, I still just find it funny because it just still grabs me by surprise. And last but not least, we have reached number 10, and that is cultural celebrations and traditions. I would say, in general, and I really want to emphasize, generally speaking, Mexican culture is way more colorful and family-oriented than the Dutch culture is when it comes to traditional celebrations and festivities. To be very concise, for example, in Mexico, it's a very big thing, Dia de Muertos, where it's incredibly vibrant and the celebration is practically around family. Contrary to, for example, if I take in the Netherlands, King's Day, where it's very colorful, but on one color where everybody dresses in orange, and it might be less family-oriented than what Dia de los Muertos in contrast is. Nevertheless, I want to also give a recognition to a celebration that the Dutch have in the south of the Netherlands especially, that I really, really enjoy every year, and it happens in February or March, and that is the Carnival Days. The Carnival Days in which people dress up in all kinds of costumes and beautiful colors, and they have a parade, and it's very family-oriented. During the day, you see kids in the streets celebrated, dressed up with their parents, and in the night, it might be a bit more for an adult environment where you're at least 18 and you're out having drinks or whatsoever, but still in this vibrant, fun, dressed up kind of celebration, and it lasts for 3 days. So this is just to say a little bit of a contrast and a little bit of similitude between both cultures. So there you have it, guys. 10 cultural shocks that as a Mexican I have gone through while living in the Netherlands ever since I moved to this country 6 years ago. I think that some of them I have already adopted and I like. Some of them I'm in the process of still accepting them. Some of them I don't think I ever will get used to. Nevertheless, I think it's very interesting to point out something else before I wrap up. And I think that too many times when we are in our home country, we accept life completely as it was given to us. We don't know other realities, and therefore perhaps we don't know new process of thought or other points of view. And I think that when you go and experience life abroad, you start to discover more senses of how people live out there. For example, there are some of the practices that the Dutch do that I would really, really love to have back in Mexico. It's very beautiful to go and discover and meet people and understand how they think and how they behave and how societies can differ. And more than that, more than discovering the world out there, I think that when you put yourself out there, you give space for self-discovery, for choosing what you would like the most and not just receiving what you were given in your context when you were born or in the country or in the nationality that you have, but also to open yourself toward other perspectives, other ways of thinking, and other just points of view of life as well. I hope you have found this information useful and interesting. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you have any comments, please drop them in the comment box below. And most importantly, please don't forget to subscribe. For me, your subscriptions are very, very important as well. And that being said, thank you so much y nos vemos a la próxima. Bye!